Hey, we want to go ahead and say thank you so much for taking the time to check out our YouTube video. If you've not done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, We Like Comic Books. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button as well. Okay, on with the story. Wonder Woman fans, there is a new God of War out there. Well, at least according to the Dark Gods. The Dark Gods have come to Earth, and if they had it their way, they would have all of Earth worshiping them in place of whomever the Earth worshippers were worshiping currently. And in addition to bringing their own god of war, they've also brought their own god of love, a god of order, a god of the void, and a father of the gods, specifically the Dark Gods. Alright, so today we're going to be covering two issues, and those are Wonder Woman issue number 48 and 49. Both are good books, but I gotta tell you this, the thing that I found to be the most interesting about these issues is the focus that they gave to not only the Dark Gods, but their abilities, and really what their impact is on Earth. So I'm going to do my best to bring those points out to you over the next few moments here in this video. So if you recall in our last video, we learned that Wonder Woman, during the Dark Knight's Metal story arc, accidentally brought the Dark Gods from the Dark Multiverse into ours. Because you see what happened is this. When the heroes were using the 10th metal, which is also known as the metal of creation itself or the metal of possibility, and sorry, I just gotta go on a quick tangent. I mean, good grief. That metal is pretty awesome. With a name like the Metal of Possibility, I mean, wouldn't you want to have your own 10th metal lying around so that you could use it however you want to? At any rate, sorry about the tangent. So yeah, what we were talking about is when the heroes were using the 10th metal to lift the Earth from the Dark Multiverse, what was revealed is that some of the heroes might have inadvertently had some of their own desires, whether they even realized it or not, brought to life due to the effects of the 10th metals. And we learned in Wonder Woman Annual number 2 that it's because of that that she brought the Dark Gods here. Because we learned that Wonder Woman actually was hoping for the gods to return, but she didn't specify which ones, and as a result of that, she inadvertently pulled the Dark Gods from the Dark Multiverse into ours. And there's not really a lot of explanation as to, why that actually happened, when she asked for the gods, why it went to the Dark Gods. But my thought is this, is that since the Earth was already, sunken into the Dark Multiverse, maybe when she was thinking that, because they were already in the Dark Multiverse, or maybe just on the border between the two, her wishing for the gods, maybe that's what caused those gods to come into our universe. At any rate, pure speculation, but those are just my thoughts on the matter. When we start off in this issue, Jason is there pretty much all alone facing the Dark Gods. So what's neat about this issue, and of course we're starting off with issue number 48, is that this is taking place right at the same time as Wonder Woman Annual number 2. Because at the end of issue number 47, which is between, which actually has the Wonder Woman Annual number 2, actually takes place right after issue number 47. But at the end of issue number 47, Wonder Woman and Jason are about to face off against the Dark Gods when all of a sudden the Star Sapphires take Wonder Woman to the homeworld of Zamarin because they also are having Dark God issues as well. We've got a really detailed video about that, and if you haven't seen it already, we have a link to it below. So check it out if you haven't done so already. So Jason is pretty much out of his depth here. He is really new to the whole being a hero, being a superhero thing, and he doesn't have to face just one Dark God by himself, but he has about four of them in front of him. Now he does have a significant tool at his disposal, and that's the armor that he's wearing. And we went over this in a previous video, but in case you missed it, Jason learns that his armor is a very unique armor. It's an armor that's infused with all of the abilities of the Greek gods. And what Jason is able to do is tap into the abilities of the armor and basically pull those abilities out one at a time. So what he decides to do is tap into the abilities of the goddess of wisdom, Athena, so that he can begin to learn more about the Dark Gods. So let's start off with the Dark God of Order, but not the type of order that you may think of. Her name is Mob God, and she is the goddess of order. But that order pertains to riots and you guessed it, mobs. Now, I think this is a really neat concept because when I initially think of riots or mobs, my first thought is that there's really no order there, but there is, and it's kind of centered around, herd or mob mentality. And this is basically defined as, a group of people that can be influenced to act in a way based off of the behavior of their peers. So with enough people being influenced under the right conditions, it can lead to behaviors like those seen in riots and mobs. Kind of an order amongst the chaos. So to me, mob god is like the goddess of crowd control, but being used in violent or dangerous ways. And I think that will make a little more sense later on in the video. The next dark god that I want to talk about is the one that I call the god of the void. And his name is the god with no name. And he is described as the god of doubt and the god of nothing. And it's the whole god of nothing thing that makes me call him the god of the void. But I think it's interesting to see how the writer chooses to manifest the results of this god's abilities. So, case in point, back in Wonder Woman Annual number 2, where it's revealed that because of the hero's use of the 10th metal and some of their desires, it was manifesting itself with different results in our universe. And of course, that's how the Dark Gods came into our universe. But it's because of the God of No Name that Wonder Woman doesn't even remember that she even thought about wanting to bring the gods back. That lack of memory, that blank spot, that nothing in her memory, that manifested itself because of the abilities of the god of no name. The god with no name. The dark god of love is named Carnell. He doesn't appear with the four dark gods that we see here because he was introduced in Wonder Woman Annual number 2. And again, that's the reason why the Star Sapphires came to get Wonder Woman, so that they could get her help to deal with Carnell. So again, he's the god of love, but not really a pure love, because he represents, I would say, the nasty side of love. He represents love that's fueled by things like jealousy, envy, or anything that takes away from the purity that we would think about when we envision romantically falling in love with somebody. The dark god of war is named Savage Fire, and she is a goddess of war, but war that is conducted under certain conditions. She's not the goddess of war that is representing war for some ideal or common good, but war for power, profit, and for blood. And we could easily say that all war could be motivated by the thing that she represents, but in my mind, I believe that she personifies the sort of conflicts associated with things such as, let's say, a gang turf war conflict, genocides, or even military coups where power is moving from one despot to another, claiming that they have the best interest for the people, but it's really just for them and their cronies. Last but not least, we have the king or the father of the dark gods, and that's King Best. Now, at this point in the story, we don't know a lot about his abilities, other than the fact that this guy is strong enough to have actually created the dark gods that are within the dark god pantheon. After Jason learns all this about the dark gods, he knew that it was pretty bad before, but after getting the rundown of all the dark gods and their abilities, I mean, it's just gone from bad to worse. But Jason knows he's got to do whatever he can do to hold off these dark gods. And it's kind of funny to me to see the dark gods over the next few comic book panels, because it's like when they came to Earth, their behavior reminds me of like a kid in a candy store. I mean, they're like all over the place. So for example, you got Savage Fire. Savage Fire wants a piece of Jason because of his armor, she can sense the power of Ares, who's a god of war, within his armor. So she's like, hey, this is like, god of war against god of war, so she wants to fight him. Then at the same time, you've got Mob God that decides that she wants to influence people to just randomly jump off a building, and Jason is barely able to save them when the god with no name, what appears to happen is just after Jason is able to save people and put them safely onto the ground, the god with no name he tries to turn people into nothing. So dealing with these dark gods with just one person to handle them is just a lot. But to Jason's credit, I mean, he's able to kind of hold his own against them. Not too well, but he's able to hold his own. But Savage Fire is back for another round, and she wants another piece of Jason. But fortunately for him, Supergirl comes in to save the day. And if you remember, back in issue 47, Supergirl and Wonder Woman were actually fighting because Supergirl fell under the control, under the influence of the Dark Gods. But fortunately, Wonder Woman was able to break that god. But shortly after, Wonder Woman comes onto the scene, we don't see Savage Fire anymore. It's almost like she's gone somewhere else. And I like the conversation that takes place between Jason and Supergirl because Supergirl, as you can see, she kind of knows about him because of her conversation with Wonder Woman, but she's not really familiar. So they get a chance to not only talk, but he even explains to her the abilities of his armor and how basically it's been able to help him in his conflict with the Dark Gods. Jason is able to reach out to Trevor at Argus, and he's asking for help. I mean, he's saying, hey, look, we need the biggest guns you got available. And, you know, Trevor's able to get the big guns. He's able to get the Justice League. Now, King Best is the only monolith left. And the Justice League and Jason decide to get a closer look at King Best. And I'm telling you, man, it's like Jason just hasn't learned his lesson yet. Because I'm telling you, if it were me, anytime I went into an unknown situation, I'd have that goddess of wisdom ability with Athena that Athena has on speed dial. And Jason says it best when he says, hey, he's too dumb to use the power of wisdom, because this is what happens. The Justice League and Jason get closer to the monolith, and Jason sees the head of the monolith move when they get closer, and that's when he dials into that ability and realizes that it's a trap. King Best needs that energy to basically wake up, to get enough energy to move that large frame. And when the Justice League gets close enough to him, he senses them, and it's like, you know, lunchtime. There's a strange energy that appears around them, and just like that, poof, the Justice League is gone. So now King Best is on the move. As far as powers go, we're still not sure, but we know that this guy's gotta be strong if he's been able to make the entire Justice League just go away, vanish. I mean, at this point, we don't know where they are and what's happened to them. So Jason is still trying to do whatever he can to try to contain the Dark Gods. So he's back again communicating with Trevor, seeing if there's anything else he can send in. And Trevor's sending in these choppers to deal with King Best. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, you know, these choppers don't stand a chance against King Best. And number two, they clearly didn't get the memo like, hey, this is the dude that just made the Justice League disappear. I don't think you guys are going to have much of a chance against him. But at any rate, you see King Best is basically taking care of these choppers like they are of no concern to him. But Jason comes back to the attention of King Best, and King Best senses the old gods due to the armor that Jason has, and he launches a huge blast right at Jason, about to knock him out. But Wonder Woman, fresh off of her return trip from Zamarin, is able to block that blast, and is ready to join Jason in battling King Best. So we've got a brother-sister team-up as Jason and Wonder Woman take on King Best. And it's really good that they do, because King Best is continuing to make short work of not only the helicopters, but even the city around him. But the combined efforts of both Wonder Woman and Jason have been enough to temporarily take King Best out of the fight, because they're able to use their combined abilities to, believe it or not, dump him into the ocean. So this next area that we're going to talk about, and just to let you know, we're actually just gotten into issue number 49 of Wonder Woman. But the next part that we're going to be talking about is what I think you'll find to be probably some of the most interesting parts of this entire series, because we really get into the Dark Gods and more into the Dark Gods and what they can do. So we're really talking about their powers here. So one thing to keep in mind is the Dark Gods are influencing, again, not only people without powers, but those with powers as well. And what I found to be very cool about the writing in this section of the comic book is that the writer not only lets you know what the Dark Gods are doing, like on a broad global scale, but he even goes into more detail to show you how things are unfolding on the ground. Basically, what those areas that are impacted by the Dark God's influence are like through the eyes of people in those particular areas. So we're going to talk about a few of those examples within over the next few minutes. So each of the dark gods goes to a different part of the earth and begins exuding their dark influence. Savage Fire decides to set up shop over South America. So all across the continent, her influence is causing the streets to literally run red with blood as everyone there is killing each other. It makes me wonder if Mob God is really a goddess of vanity, because Mob God ends up going to Britain, and when she is there above Britain, she has the entire population locked in a trance, all jointly looking up at her, and basically, as I said, in a trance-like state. And this goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about her influence, because as you see here, she's able to get this whole crowd to act together for dangerous or detrimental purposes, and this is more along the detrimental purpose line, and I'll tell you why. Because as everybody is looking up and just fixated on her, she's not allowing them to do anything else. All they can do is just stand there and behold her. So people are literally dying in the streets because of a lack of nutrition and generally not being able to attend to any of their own basic human needs. Carnell is over China, and his influence has whipped the entire country into a nationwide orgy, and it's so intense that people are dying by the tens of thousands. And last but not least, we have the god with no name who is above St. Petersburg, Russia, and he's using his power of doubt to cause the people of this area to doubt themselves so much that you've got mass suicides happening all across the city. So we've seen how things have been unfolding across different continents and cities, but let's take a look at things on a micro level. Like I said, the writer gives us an opportunity to see how things unfolded through the eyes of different characters. So for example, we've got a woman by the name of Isabella who starts off her day like any other day, but unfortunately, due to the influence of Savage Fire, she's compelled to shed blood. She not only ends up killing her father, but ends up using a rifle in their house to kill people in the streets. You've got Danny here who's leaving for work there in Britain, but before he reaches his destination, he gets caught up in the thrall that's been created by Mob God. So we have I, who's on her way, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, who's on her way to practice yoga. And what the writer's letting us know is that while she's on her way, she's just, thinking about how much she enjoys yoga, how much she enjoys bending and stretching. But as she leaves the house, she's caught up in the effects of Carnell. And as the writer says, she, as a result of that, continues to bend and stretch, but, just in different ways. And then last but not least, we've got a character here by the name of, I hope I'm pronouncing this right as well, Vitali. And he appears to be leaving his house to start his day like any other day. And it's interesting because, he's just reflecting on some of his time growing up. He's thinking about when he grew up, it was during the era of Stalin. And Stalin not only instilled fear in people, he could see the fear that Stalin instilled in people in the eyes of his parents as he grew up. But once he leaves the house, he also gets influenced by the dark god in his area, and that of course is the god with no name. And as a result of what that dark god is doing, Vitali not only begins to see the fear, kind of that same fear that he noticed when he was growing up, he begins to feel fear as well. And he's so scared, of whatever it is. That fear causes him to run out into the street and unfortunately runs straight into oncoming traffic, right into a truck going his way. So I think it's pretty clear to see that chaos continues to ensue and just spread all over the world, because even though the dark gods may not be present in a particular area, their influence is still being felt. This is similar to the craze that we saw back at the beginning of all of this, way back in issue number 46. So shortly after Wonder Woman and Jason are able to take King Bess out of the action, they kind of do a little bit of regrouping and press forward. And what ends up happening is Wonder Woman ends up going one way, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, but Jason actually ends up going to Paraguay in South America to take the fight back to Savage Fire. It's like he wants round two. But this time, through experience, Jason is making a smart decision because at the very beginning of his fight with Savage Fire, he begins to invoke the wisdom of Athena to help him with this particular fight. So as I was saying before, Wonder Woman and Jason basically split. So as you just heard, Jason went to Paraguay to meet Savage Fire, and Wonder Woman actually ends up meeting with Trevor. And Wonder Woman and Trevor are doing a little bit of game planning because they know that things are bad. They know that the Justice League has been taken out. They know that you've got heroes who have been affected by the power of the Dark Gods. So people that were originally allies, now under the control of the Dark Gods, they're beginning to fight each other. So they're coming up with their next plan. They're thinking about all the reserves, or Trevor's telling Wonder Woman about all the different reserves, superhero forces he's planning to call up, all the different teams he's planning to bring forth to engage with the Dark Gods. But before they're able to execute that plan, they've got to change them. Because what ends up happening is that the Dark Gods, who were originally spread all over the earth and at the bottom of the ocean, because that's where King Best was, they all disappeared and all reappeared in Paraguay. Sorry, I'm butchering that name. And when Wonder Woman sees this, she immediately knows that something is wrong because that's where Jason went to, and she rushes away to help her brother. So when Wonder Woman gets on the scene, she's looking high and low, really, for any trace of the Dark Gods and her brother, because she just really wants to make sure he's alive. Because 5 Dark Gods against 1 person, that is not a good scenario for anybody. Well, Wonder Woman does find Jason, and she does find the Dark Gods, but there's a bit of a twist. So do you remember when we said that the Dark Gods have the ability to influence, corrupt, and cause people to come to their side, whether they have powers or not? Well, guess what? They've been able to do this yet again with somebody who does have some pretty strong powers. And I'm going to give you one guess as to who that is. That's right, it's Jason. So as we see the way things are laid out here, it looks like we have the makings of a winner-take-all match where we have Jason and the Dark Gods against Wonder Woman, setting up a fantastic Wonder Woman number 50, which is going to be coming up in our next video. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for watching this video. This again was a bit of a longer video because we wanted to combine really issues 48 and 49. They go really well together, and they did a great job of giving us some more insight into the Dark Gods and just the sort of mayhem that they can cause when they're here on Earth. So please stay tuned, give us about a week, and we'll be releasing our next video. Have a good one, everybody. Oh, sorry, real quickly. By the way, if you've not done so already, we would absolutely love it if you would go ahead and hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel. Okay, that's really it for this video. Have a good one, and we'll see you in about a week.